Hello, and welcome to the sixth episode of Levi with Levi. Yeah, so I'm not sure, as usual, exactly what I'm going to be talking about, but I'm going to be talking and see what comes out of me. So there's something I've been thinking a little bit about, which is this idea of uh, authenticity and what it really means to kind of be yourself, right? Because being yourself can very quickly become like an idea, right? So you have an idea of yourself, how you should or shouldn't be behaving, and we kind of have a tendency to kind of try to replicate this idea of us in different situations. So if we are considering ourselves to be an extrovert, we will, be going out of our way to kind of reinforce this idea of ourselves to be talking a lot, being very outgoing. And the same with introverts. It's like, I remember back in the days, I considered myself an introvert, but I also saw that in some situations I wasn't that at all. So it's like, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that we have this idea of being an introvert, and then I've been feeling, or at least I used to feel like whenever I kind of went out of that role and became something more, it was very easy to judge myself for that and kind of think, what will people think of this? Maybe this version of me that is a bit more, and I was very easily thinking, oh my god, they're thinking I'm too much, or what's up with Levi, because he's acting differently, and we have all these ideas, and they're they are very they're like, maybe you have a tendency to be in one end or the other, but I've been noticing in like social situations that I'm sitting there, and sometimes I'm talking a lot, and sometimes I'm just listening and observing, and I feel like different moments are pulling out different versions of me if I allow it. So I think it's I think none of us are one of these things. I think when we're sticking to one of them, that's when um, we start to feel kind of it's hard to stick to something that isn't coming naturally, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, just feeling the moment. It's not even any. We don't have to be like conscious about like, now I have to be more or less introverted. I think it's more about when you're in a situation and maybe you're feeling very comfortable just listening, and you're feeling like the flow of the conversation is going well. It's been like a pattern of mine to kind of feel like I need to contribute, I need to kind of say something, and I don't think that's always necessary. And whenever I'm kind of hearing myself starting something like that in my head, like I'm sitting there, it's an amazing conversation, I'm enjoying it, I'm just kind of taking in what's happening, right? And then the mind starts to discuss this in the head, and like, oh my god, should we be talking more? What are they thinking? And then it's just like, I don't need to do anything about it. I don't need to be silent or talk. I just need to go back to the moment. What's happening? Like, for example, these two people are talking, and it's super interesting. And then it's very typical to hear maybe the people talking are noticing that some people aren't talking and becoming self-conscious about that. It's like, oh my god, am I talking too much? And then I'm like, as long as I'm not in my kind of idea of the situation, instead of just being there, I'm like, I mean, this is super interesting. Just keep going, you know. But everyone is sitting around a table, kind of evaluating their own contribution, whether it's too much, too little, instead of just like kind of pulling ourselves back to the moment. But what's happening? What's actually happening right now? What's happening is that you're sharing, and the people around the table are listening, and it's great, you know. It's so I feel like instead of thinking about what I should be doing or shouldn't be doing, it's it's a better question to ask, but what's happening? You know, right now I am silent, and I am taking in this moment, and the less I'm in there kind of discussing whether I should be doing this, or whether the moment is great or not great or whatever, the more enjoyable the moment becomes, and the more you can take it in because you're actually there. And then suddenly maybe something comes out of you that is not coming from some sort of plan in your mind to get into the conversation more, that maybe is not fitting because you came up with this thing to say, like, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes ago, and now we're not really exactly on that topic anymore, right? And just staying in the moment, feeling what you're feeling, hearing what you're hearing, and then if it makes sense, something will come out of you, and suddenly maybe you're more in the conversation for a while, and then less, and you know, it is there is a natural kind of flow to a conversation, and we don't need to question it. We don't need to question our own role, and we don't need to question other people's role. It's just what's happening. It's so easy to think about what should be happening, but the only real guidance we have that is kind of based in reality is what is happening. And then, you know, afterwards, it's easy also to kind of go into this evaluation process of kind of a social get together where we are thinking about whether or not we kind of did the right thing, or we're too much of this or too little of that, or maybe we shouldn't have said that thing because what will they think? Oh my god, it just came out of me, you know. But what comes out of us is very often like something that comes out of this space where we're not meddling, right? And then we're saying something that we usually don't say. It doesn't fit with our idea of ourselves, maybe, or the idea we're trying to project upon the world. But you never know really what kind of ripple the thing you say has. So even if someone straight up tells you some sort of negative reaction to something you said, it doesn't mean that the situation itself was like a bad situation, you know, a bad thing to say. Maybe you said something that was uncomfortable to hear for someone, and if that person is willing to kind of take it in, it will maybe alter their life in the future. We just don't know these things. I'm not saying that it will have some great ripple or impact. I'm just saying we don't know. So sitting after the fact, evaluating a conversation and what we said and did and didn't do, it's just, it doesn't have any value because we do not know our impact. I'm not trying to say here that we should never kind of take in feedback we hear from other people, or even, evaluate. I mean, we're automatically evaluating every situation. We're feeling the energy, we're feeling what's happening all the time. And I think that is enough for us to change if we are acting kind of out of alignment with the moment. We will kind of take it in on I think, a subconscious level and just learn from it. So, and I think like the more we judge ourselves for something, the harder it is to kind of take it in, because we're we're feeling kind of attacked by ourselves, sort of, and it's much harder to learn when we are kind of under pressure, under attack. We're feeling something is wrong, right? And but if we're kind of more openly seeing a situation or something, we will. I think we will be able to really see kind of the lesson there, and yeah, because you gotta have to be like self-honest. Like, if you're just throwing some judgment on top of something, you're not really being self-honest. I mean, you can judge yourself, but kind of really looking at it without distortion, without all your opinions about it, will make you see the situation clearer, and thus you will easily or easier. It will be easier to learn from it, because there's nothing wrong with it. Like, it happened, and let's learn from it and kind of move on. So yeah, I think there's, of course, a lot to learn from all the things we do, but I think the learning happens kind of by itself if we are kind of aware of ourselves and our surroundings. But if we're too caught up in our head, like just thinking about ourselves and how we are being kind of perceived in a situation, it's very hard to kind of pick up on what's actually going on in a situation. So yeah, and of course, like, this isn't just applicable for conversations. I mean, um, it's all the things we kind of do. I very often catch myself thinking about what should I be doing, you know, and it's the same. It's like with like this business I'm trying to start now. It's like, what should I be doing? Like, what language should I be kind of communicating in? What should be my focus? And kind of what offering should be there, and all these things. It's kind of like, I'm not saying it has no value to think about it, but I think it is a better question to ask. But what are you doing? What's happening? Where are your energy going here? Because I think that's a much better indicator of kind of the direction you're going in. It's more like, okay, but how are you spending your time? Like, what's interesting to you now? What are you sitting down doing because you feel like it? Where's the enthusiasm, right? So I think very often just looking at what are we doing is kind of like a very good indicator. So many times over the last couple of weeks, I've been like, I'm just feeling like my mind is just churning on these choices, But whenever I kind of catch myself getting too caught up in that, I'm more like, okay, but what's happening? Okay, I'm kind of preparing a website, and so what's happening there? Like, what am I writing? What is kind of flowing out of me? What makes sense when I'm kind of writing about it? And another interesting thing here that I've been noticing is like like and I've just been noticing how, because these things are going through my head like all the time, and I think that's just fine. And then I find it sometimes a bit hard to be honest with people about what I'm planning to do, and kind of how I'm planning to do it and what kind of doubts I have about it. And I've been noticing also like how I'm not sure exactly why I'm so hesitant to kind of talk about it. It's like I almost like want to just it's happening, like, but it's like it is a really interesting process also to just be honest with people about what I'm trying to do, why I'm trying to do it, and also just airing out like my doubts a little bit, because I'm noticing, because I'm meeting people, and they're kind of hearing me out, right? And then they're coming with their input from different angles. And I'm not saying it's like we should always kind of just listen to every person who says something or have an opinion about what you want to do, because then honestly we wouldn't do anything, because we would just be paralyzed by all the opinions. So it's important to kind of not kind of attach to the opinions and just do exactly what they're saying, because it just ends up doing nothing. But it is something about talking through things, and getting perspectives from other people who's been in a completely different life than you, and just getting their take on it. Maybe they're coming from a very different place and have a different job, but like their perspectives can be very interesting. But I'm just noticing like I'm not getting anything from anyone that is useful unless I'm being honest. I kind of have to bear, I kind of have to open myself up to the potential judgment. And I think that's maybe why there is some hesitancy of being honest, because we can be judged. But I think if we're just willing to be honest, we will get some people who just straight up disagree with what we're doing. But that's also okay. But that's sort of a judgment we can observe, not necessarily do anything with it. And then some people kind of are coming at what you're thinking about from a different angle that you maybe haven't thought about at all. And then we can take that into, or rather, I think this will be automatically like taken into the consideration. I don't think like after a conversation where you get some constructive feedback on something that you have to kind of consciously think about it and kind of I don't know, just ruminate about it over and over again. I think we can just let it be, and just kind of it's already been taken in. The parts of it that were useful, the parts of it that were not useful. And instead of kind of going down like, all right, let's incorporate this new feedback into like the plan, it's more like, okay, what's happening now? I have some new input, I know that, but it's like, what's happening now? What am I doing now? Are things flowing in a different way now? Yes or no? Like, I think that's where it's really happening. What are you sitting down, or like, what are you doing? I think that's just the best indicator of anything. And yeah, yeah. No, I really enjoy that aspect, because I feel like I'm moving forward in this way. I am moving forward. I don't need to force myself to move forward. I don't need to think about moving forward. It's more like, oh, what's happening? So yeah, that's that's been an interesting kind of thing thing to see when I'm kind of trying to do something quite concretely, and this process. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's good. It really is. Ah, yeah. What else do we got? What else do we got? Maybe I'll drink some water. I haven't really gotten like a blank, a real blank on making these videos, and I think the reason it becomes like a blank is when we're we are kind of set on a thing to say, and then it disappears from the mind. And that's been happening quite a few times, but I think that is the interesting part about kind of being honest, right? Because what's going on inside of me is kind of the whole thing. Because basically, what happened as I was kind of wrapping up the whole thing about the business is that I came up with this brilliant new topic in my head. And then as I was finishing up, it just completely disappeared. And then I had some water and just hoping it would come back. And then I figured, let's just talk. Let's just keep talking, because that is what's actually happening. Just back to the authenticity from the beginning, like in a conversation, who you really are. And like we we have these ideas of how things should be, right? And what's best. And of course, my mind comes up with what's best all the time. And when it kind of doesn't pan out that way, it's easy to kind of panic a little bit and just, oh my God, what am I gonna do now? It's gone. So I feel then it's just as well to kind of just I guess be open about that process that is going on inside. And I feel like we don't do that a lot in in society. I feel we are very much just keeping up this facade, this perfect facade that we think people will appreciate. And I'm just noticing, listening to other people that are kind of letting go of this perfect version of themselves that they think they should be. It's just very interesting, and you kind of start to you very quickly relate to kind of what they're saying, because it is coming from it's kind of coming from the present moment in a way. And we are all kind of in the present moment together, and I think we're going through a lot of the same things in sort of in terms of yeah, all these kind of insecurities, all the kind of mistakes we do, or like wrong things. I'm doing quotes here now, like all the wrong things we are doing that we're kind of trying to cover up all the time. And I don't think it's healthy at all to kind of try to keep up with this perfect idea. And I think it's a lot harder to really relate authentically to people when we're keeping up this facade. And I think like what is I'm sure like of course it resonates with some people, this perfectness. That's because I think there is this desire to be perfect, and I really don't think anyone really is perfect, but I do know from trying to be perfect, like before, it's a very it's a very heavy process to keep up appearances, to keep up this idea of who we should be. It is incredibly heavy, and as soon as we gonna let down the guard and just trust that who we are as we actually are, with all our mistakes and insecurities and also a bunch of positive things that we are all um, kind of that we all have, it's just so much lighter because there's no or there's less pretend. It's like if you're gonna play a role all the time, you're gonna have to use a lot of energy keeping up that role, keeping up the appearances. And the role is different for different people. Like I know a lot of people who uh, maybe they're really concerned about like intelligence, status, money, and they've been working really hard to um, to keep kind of this up, and it's been absolutely draining them of energy. And I've been there myself, for sure. And then maybe one day we're kind of realizing how much weight that is putting on us. And I know that a lot of people, including myself at some point, kind of embrace everything that is the opposite of kind of that world as kind of an escape from all that stress and tension. But then there's other identities you can kind of take on instead. And suddenly you're maybe in a spiritual world, and suddenly there's new appearances to keep up. You need to kind of maybe never eat meat. You should never drink coffee because there's caffeine. Maybe you should go to all these meditations, and you should kind of be calm all the time, forgive everyone, never be angry, and all these things. And it's like it's just a new, it can very easily just become a new kind of appearance or a new identity that you need to keep up with, and it's equally heavy. And it's it's just even more heavy to think that you have to be calm all the time. Like is that even like desirable, to just be walking around not kind of feeling or reacting to anything? But of course we are feeling and reacting to everything all the time, so it's just a big suppression of what's happening. And I know myself, it's very easy to go there and think that this is the right way, this is how everyone should live their life. And that's just an idea. Like, how do you know how people should live their lives? How do anyone know? I don't think it's possible. Of course you can kind of identify some things that have helped you a lot, but um, that's that has nothing to do with your identity, and being something and following a set of very strict rules for something and chasing something. That's not where the kind of increased life, or like sense of freedom and space in your life is coming from. I think it's coming from not having so much attachment to identity, and kind of understanding that we have the potential to be many different things. Like, we're changing all the time, and that's like you can't pin an identity on like what we are, because we have the potential to do anything, and the only thing that is keeping us from doing that is all these ideas that we have that are kind of linked to our identity. Like we have all these rules for ourselves, and many of them are even subconscious. Like I've been noticing many things about myself that kind of I didn't know. I didn't know I was doing it. It's like, yeah, it's yeah. But I think the only thing we can really do is just kind of take ourselves back to what's happening and how are we reacting and kind of behaving in different settings. And I think what we're doing is what we are. We're not this thing, this identity that we love so much and is so scared of kind of changing, or maybe we're also scared of people attacking kind of important parts of the identity. Yeah, so yeah, it always comes back to just kind of paying attention to what's happening in front of you instead of paying attention to all the ideas that we have of ourselves and of others. I think that's equally important to understand that what you're seeing it through your filter of this person. And I really think that if people just kind of paid less attention to the ideas of others, we would more easily kind of understand other people and connect with other people, because it's like we're just ideas talking to ideas. So, and we're like, yeah, it's these filters we have, and I don't think like we have to consciously kind of remove the filters. I think it can be a nice reminder that we don't really know anything about a person. But more than anything, it's just kind of bringing it back to the moment, just paying attention to the person instead of paying attention to the ideas we have of the person. So maybe we're initially meeting someone that we know, maybe we think, like maybe we've seen them somewhere and we have some ideas, and I just know that no matter how that person is presenting themselves, that is not the truth, because how they're presenting themselves I have a lot of ideas about. I can very quickly create like an idea of someone and something, and if I'm with a friend meeting this person, I know that my friend will have a different view of this person. And it's just, I don't think we need to do much about it. It's just knowing that we do this. We create these ideas and they are not correct. Just having that in the back of the head, and then just paying attention to what's happening instead of, yeah, this person. And I mean this identity that we think they are. So yeah, I think that's, yeah, I feel very much of what's kind of coming out of me these days is this idea of just bringing it back to now and what's happening, because everything else is just an idea, and we don't need to pay attention to that, because they are literally creating like a foggy screen of what's actually happening. So I think the more we are just here now, we will see more clearly, we will learn more, we will understand other people better, and we'll be able to kind of bring our authentic selves into the conversation, because we'll just be we'll just be coming out, we'll just be jumping into the conversation at the right time. And when people say something, we won't assume so much about what they're saying. We'll just hear what they're saying and react to that instead of what we assume they mean because they are like this and this and this. So, yeah, there's, it's easy to think that all of this stuff, creating more space, creating more freedom, is a very like complicated path. And I think what's complicated about it's what's already there. But kind of opening up that complicated mess that we've created a whole life to create is actually very simple. It is just staying present, staying authentic, trusting yourself to kind of do the right things at the right time. And then when we do pay attention, we do change. Things start to unravel. Things that we haven't seen in ourselves before, for example, just suddenly reveals itself. And once you see it, it's possible to see it without judgment, and then we can learn from it. And I think that is really the beauty of life, just experiencing how we kind of have the potential to become more, become anything. Like, and I don't mean more as in there's something more to be, but there's just, I think I'm talking about the potential here, like the potential we have, every one of us, to be all the things that we don't think we can be. Like, we can definitely do that. It's just starting to move and starting to do. Yeah. Yeah, I feel we're at the end of this episode. I'm yeah, I'm I'm curious to hear this one back, because I'm yeah, it's I think it's interesting how, because I'm kind of feeling quite, when I'm talking to this, I'm kind of like, I need to kind of let go a bit. And I'm hearing myself often like trying to stop myself from saying something, and sometimes I do stop myself, but sometimes I'm just letting it go anyway. And it's like, yeah, I honestly, like, I can't really remember what I've said so much. So it's always fun to kind of hear, all right, what was going on and how did it all fit together, because yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I appreciate you listening, and I will be back with another episode at some point. All right. Have a good day.